Today we're going to show you how to turn a Nerf Raider into this Star Wars Sith Trooper blaster. Hey everybody, I'm Jonathan and this is Damaged Darts, where we specialize in converting ordinary Nerf blasters into extraordinary prop blasters from popular video games and movies, and show you how you can do it too. If you like what you see on this channel, won't you be so kind as to smash that subscribe button, hit the notification bell, leave a thumbs up like, and a positive comment below. Today we're going to show you how to turn a Nerf Raider into this Star Wars Sith Trooper blaster, so let's get started. We're going to start off by getting this thing prepped for painting, and we're going to need to take out all these screws and get everything apart. We'll also need to sand off all the labeling, the Raider, the Nerf, this back here on the stock. We're going to take and grind this entire thing out, all the warning labeling here on the other side. So taking this apart and grinding all the labeling down. I'm going to be using a Dremel sanding drum to grind down all the labeling. So you'll need a Dremel for this, or a lot of time and elbow grease and sandpaper to sand these pieces off. But I'm going to be using a Dremel for that. And then we're going to take this all apart and then hit it with some steel wool to rough up all the edges so that the primer and the paint have something to hold on to for a really good bond for the painting. Alright, so I've got everything taken apart here, and you can see the internals. Now, I, again, highly recommend that as you do this, use your cell phone or a camera that you have on hand to take photos to document all of your pieces, like I did all these little little buttons for the adjustment for the stock, the mag release. I think I'm going to actually, for this mag well, I'm going to paint this too. Chances are I'm probably going to just tape around this and then do the painting. This is all going to be flat. Actually, this is all going to be all red in this mag well here, so I'll probably just paint around it and it should be fine there. So I'm going to leave that alone so I don't really have to get into the mechanics of this mag release. So with that, this is all of the parts taken apart, and I'm going to take all this stuff out, and we're going to get all these pieces prepped for painting first, and then we're going to get into the internals to modify these for a bit of extra pop. But here's what it looks like. This is the stock tube. So that's, and there's the little adjuster tabs. We're going to be painting that. This we're actually going to be replacing with a 3D printed part that I downloaded from Thingiverse. I'll be leaving a link in the description below so you can check that out. We're going to be replacing that all together, so I'm going to just toss that and get rid of that one. We don't need that for this project. I've got the stock itself, the halves here ready for prepping. All of the little buttons here and the little piece. What this is, let's see here. This is the actual connector back here. This is the switch, the latch that locks it in place, and there's the piece with the springs here. I took a photo of that as well. So if you're going to take that apart, there's these little screws here. Take a photo of a reference photo of all these pieces so you know how to put them back together. And again, later on in this video, of course, you can just watch all the way through when we reassemble this so that you know what to do to get it back in one functional piece. So now I'm going to take all this out and get it ready for painting. Alright, one last thing before we get everything apart to painting. I went ahead, back here it's pretty easy to undo. This little bar comes out here, the guide, and this catch ring. It'll pop off the back pretty easily, and the power spring, which we will be replacing with a much more powerful one, will slide off of this. Then we got a little bit to contend with back here. We're going to go ahead and take these guide rails off. There's little screws, 1, 2, 3, 4. We're going to take those off and be able to slide this up and out. To loosen this, I'm going to try and just keep this in place so I'm not messing around with any of this. I'm just going to tape that in place because this doesn't matter. We want to kind of keep, I'm trying to keep all the pieces as much as possible intact here while I paint the outside of this shell. So we're going to go ahead and take a screwdriver and undo this. So for reference, it looks like the internals on this one, the screws that hold everything in place, are silver. So your silver screws will be for your internal pieces, and the black will be for the outside to keep that clamshell together. So we've got this loosened up. That should pop loose and slide off. This is a, looks like a reverse plunger type deal here. So we're going to set that aside and slide this whole sled mechanism out. And especially these portions here, what we're going to be working with to modify it for that extra pop, but we'll get to that later. So we're going to set this off to the side. Don't need to do any painting on that. And we'll just keep this stuff intact. We don't need to take that out. So that's pretty much it. Even if you wanted to, I'd recommend just screwing these back into place for now. And then we'll loosen them up later to get those pieces back in. Again, I'm taking a minimalist approach to this. Less is more. Less you have to dink around with on this inside part, the easier and the quicker it will be. So there we go. I'm going to go ahead and just put some painter's tape over this and just seal that in place. And then we'll start working with the outside of this and getting that prepped for painting. Alright, so I have everything done with the next phase. So what I did is I went over everything with steel wool to rough up the edges. Then I added a coat or two of the primer. I used self-etching automotive primer. Had I to do it over again, I probably would have went with a white primer or a light gray. But I went ahead and used what I had laying around, because what happened is when I put the gloss red here, it gave it a darker look, which I still think is super cool because it gives it more of a weathered, kind of worn, realistic look there. But if you're looking for more of a bright, as it is in this mag here, this was an orange mag, and I just roughed it up with the steel wool and added the gloss red, and it's much brighter in comparison to the darker here. So if you're looking for a brighter red when you're doing this blaster, then I would suggest going with a white or a lighter gray primer. So I've got this all set. What I need to do now, oh, and I also, of course, after the primer, added the gloss red, and I just painted basically the areas that I'm going to need red, because next I'm going to tape off the sections I want to keep red, and then add my flat black. So it's going to be the mag well here that's red, the mag itself, the tops of the stock here, and the grips on the handle as it is here. So I'm basically going to tape off right here for that grip to be red as it is on the Sith Trooper blaster. So that's what we're going to do next. Right, on this next part of the masking, I'm going to be masking off just that section of the grip on the handle. And what I didn't mention earlier is when I put the primer first and then I put down the red, I let everything dry and cure overnight before I did my taping. I highly suggest that so that you don't get any peeling of the paint on the tape, to make sure everything's nice and secured and fully cured overnight before you do all your masking in the next set of painting. So with that out of the way, I just layered some pieces of painter's tape over this, and what I'm going to do is I'm going to take a pencil and I'm going to kind of rub over the edge here, and this is going to give me the shape of the grip that's sticking out, because what I need to do is I need to cut close to exact on this grip, so just that shape of the grip is masked off in that red. I can even kind of push down on the tape actually here and get a better relief here to show where everything is. And then I can just rub this pencil along the edge. That's coming out. And then I will use this as my guideline to cut it out with scissors. And then I'm going to replace it back on there for the masking. for the handle. Alright, so I'm going to go ahead and peel it off here, trying to keep all of them together. There we go, there's my shape. So now I'm going to take the scissors and cut that out. Oops, a little slippage there, but that's alright. I didn't get everything exactly the way I wanted it on that print, but what I can do then is just take a little bit of this painter's tape scrap and just kind of cover up any other areas that I want masked off. Make sure I get a nice clean look to that grip section and a nice, that bright red. So I'll just add a few edges, and as you can see down here, it's a little exposed there. I'm going to go ahead and just take a straight piece and cover that up, and we should be good to go. So I went ahead and hit most of it with a coat or two of the gloss black. I know I mentioned flat black, but I decided to go with the gloss that I had on hand. Really like the look of it. And this piece, I went ahead and went back over it with another coat of the gloss red, and that really actually sealed the deal and made it pop, much like the mag that I showed you earlier. So I'm going to let that cure overnight. Then I'm going to tape along this line right here and cover that, and then hit the rest with the gloss black. But for now, we get to do a nice satisfying video here of peeling off the masking on the stocks and this part of the clamshell. Again, I highly advise after you paint it and it dries to take your masking off, as the paint along the edge can turn into a sort of a glue, and then you get a lot of chipping if you let it dry overnight with the tape on. So paint it, let it dry, and take off your masking. So I'm going to do that now. So find the underside here. There we go. And we get a little bit on the top here. Aha, look at that. Check that off. Woohoo! Nice clean line, looks like. Tried to push it up against the seam here. That seemed to do the trick. Yeah, so there is that red top half of the stock, like you see on the Sith Trooper Blaster. So I'm going to go ahead and take the masking off of this stock, and actually let's do this one so you can see what the grip looks like after we did that masking. Nice. Yeah, that turned out great. So now I'm going to go ahead and do that, take the masking off the stock, and tomorrow I'm going to do the masking and hit that with black, and we should be almost set to go. I got to do a little bit of work on the barrel, and then we should be ready to go and work on the modifications of the internals. Alright, so before we get to the internals, I want to go over a few more things I have painted here. Got our 3D printed sight that I taped off and did with the gloss black and the silver. We're going to be leaving a link in the description below on Thingiverse where you can upload that and print to your own. And of course, it's a little bit simpler of a design than is on the replica. We started designing this when there were not so many photos online yet of it, but now there's a ton with more detail. So we may go back and add more detail to the sight, but for now it looks great. It's very convincing for a sight. The other piece we used is a pump grip, the shotgun pump grip, and you can find this. We're going to leave that link in the description below. It's from another designer. We just wanted to do something really quick that we could get to that looked really close, and found this. You can upload that for free on Thingiverse as well. Thingiverse.com. We'll leave a link in the description below. And this takes, to hold this together, 3 M3 40mm screws. Now we had a little different print resolution on this. You might have a variance there. What I ended up doing is one of the 40mm worked on here. I had to get 45mm screws and cut them down a bit to get them to fit on the other side. But the space for the nut fit great, and it came together very nicely. So that is the pump grip that we used. A little bit about the, oh, and we also painted the barrel tip here silver to match the replica. And a little bit about the barrel work we did on the inside. I'm going to switch clamshells here so I can show you. So you have the option of going with a worker mod 30, I believe 30 centimeter barrel. So if you want a full smooth contiguous barrel, I would recommend going, and we'll leave a link in the description below on that where you can get that and put a solid barrel through here and do the same paint job. But if you have some extra barrel laying around, again, we're doing this on a budget build. I used what we had in our little chum bin, and this was just a stock orange barrel, and I had another piece of black worker mod barrel laying around. So what I was able to do is lay this in the cradle here, and this actually seats, that's why I've got a little bit of paint here, I've got to repaint because I slid it. It's a very tight press fit through here, but it seats really well on the front end here. And then when I mount it in place, this aligns with the rest of this because this sits in the cradle, so they're in perfect alignment with each other and a tight fit up against there, so I have a smooth barrel that way. So you can also do it that way if you want, using some scraps and just piecing it together. That should work fine. But if you want a solid barrel, just go with that 30 centimeter barrel that off of Amazon. You can just lay that whole thing in and do the tape job like we did here. So you could tape off one section, paint it silver, then tape off the other section. I would recommend, of course, painting red first, then taping that off and painting the gloss black, because the effect you get when you lay it in place is that red band in the center of the blaster like you see on the replica. It gives it that effect and turns out really nice. So that's how you want to paint it. Again, always start with your lighter colors first and then work through your darker colors. So that's how we created the barrel. A little bit about this barrel piece for that little 3-hole venting. It was a bit of a challenge. I used painter tape, and I just kind of marked, I used our calipers and marked the center line, and marked it there and looped it around and marked the center line here, just kind of eyeballed it. And then after I had the markers, I used a very small drill bit and did some pilot holes. Now if you want to get it very accurate, you can make measurements along that center line and make your markers where you want the holes to be, and then do the same type of measurements on the flip side and then put your holes there. Then they'll be guaranteed to be evenly spaced. The evens are a little bit off, but it still looks really good. What I ended up doing was the lazy way, and you can do this too, is you just take your pilot, the smallest drill bit you have, and drill through. But make sure I kind of eyeballed it and made sure my bit was straight, and let it drill all the way through to the other side to make my marks. So what's on this side is on this side. And then I went with our 1/8 inch drill bit and just zip through those. And then again, if you want the vent holes to be larger, you can always go up a size in the drill bit. So that's how we created the hole vents on the front end. So now what we need to be working on next is the internal upgrades and put this thing back together. Alright, so the modifications we're going to be working on today involve the plunger system, the upgraded power spring that we have here, and the double strength catch ring spring we have here. Again, we are going to leave links in the description below where you can find those to do the upgrades. Now what we're going to need to do with this system, I'm going to take this part off. Again, always take photos of your progression, and if you don't, you can always go online and just type in Nerf Raider internals. Chances are you'll find the photos you need for reference to put this back together. I'm going to take this part off. And what we're going to be working on is right down in here, is that hole right there. We're going to be getting an extra long 1/4 inch drill bit and drilling down in to that hole that you see there, which will grind out the part that's holding that post. That post has got to go. That is the air restrictor. Those little pins around it we can leave. We just need a nice open hole right there for all the air to really get through that breech to fire the dart at full capacity. So we'll leave a link in the description where you can get one of those really super long quarter-inch barrel, quarter-inch drill bits to just go down there and just grind that out. And what will happen is that little post will fall out, and that is all you need to do. Oh, actually, no. One other thing we're going to do, we're going to drill that out. You will also notice a little tiny hole right there. We're going to use a little bit of JB Weld epoxy putty. You can use some tape or some hot glue or even a little bit of clear epoxy glue to fill that hole in. Just make sure it doesn't go all the way through and obstruct and get inside the tube there. You just want just to cover the surface right there to seal in any air escaping, because you want it to escape out this way only, so all that air gets used, that energy gets used to fire the dart. So that is what we're going to do next. Alright, so I'm going to drill out that post, aka the air restrictor here. I've got a 1/4 inch super long drill bit, and I'm just going to go down here and align everything accordingly and drill it out. You have to press down pretty firmly with it too, and just kind of take your time, be patient. Alright, looks like it broke through. And you'll have a little bit of plastic dust and everything like that, but you'll have... Oh, right here. So you'll have the post fall out. This is what you'll have. After it's ground out, you'll have that post, and then tap off all the plastic debris. I'm going to show you guys here. This is what you'll have. There's the nice clean hole you want. That's what you want to see after you're done drilling everything out. So we've removed the air restrictor. Now I'm going to take some epoxy putty and put that right in that little hole there. Alright, so I've got some JB Weld plastic weld epoxy putty. I'm going to open this up. You can also use the JB epoxy water weld. It's just a tan color versus a blue. You're going to get the same result. And there's some the epoxy and the hardener. So we're just going to pinch off a little bit here. You get a little bit of both the blue and the gray there. And we're just going to mush it together till it's a nice light blue color. And if you get a little bit on your fingers, that's fine. You can wash that off with soap and water. And I've got quite a bit of epoxy here. We're only probably use like a little pinch off of even this to fill in that little tiny hole. Alright, so I've got it mixed really well here. I'm only going to need to pinch off a little bit of this, really. And we're just going to cover ever so slightly. I'm going to have to just lift up on the cradle here to kind of get it. In fact, I'm going to take some sandpaper here first. And just rough it up a little bit. Just so I can get a little bit more of a bite with that epoxy. That's nice. A little roughed up there. That's what I want. Just use this bit of something I've got on hand just to rub off some of the dust. And then I'm going to get that epoxy putty in on that little hole. Alright, so I've got the epoxy putty put on here, and it's just a little dab, so it will cure and dry in about 10 to 20 minutes, and that will be ready to go. If you are in a pinch and a budget constraint and you don't have epoxy putty, you can always just use a piece of Scotch tape to tape over and seal off that hole. I would recommend cleaning this area with some rubbing alcohol to degrease it, then putting the tape on, and you should be set. So we've sealed this off. We've drilled out the air restrictor. Another thing I did right here is I took off this little rubber O-ring, because this is our air power. This is the piston and the seal. I took off the O-ring and I added 2 wraps, 1, 2, of Teflon tape, or T-tape as they call it. You can get this at your local hardware store in the plumbing section most likely, but we will leave a link in the description below where you can get that on Amazon. So 2 wraps of that. I would, if it's really extra greasy here, take some rubbing alcohol and clean that off to dry it a bit so you get more of a stick of this Teflon tape. In this case it wasn't too greasy, so I just went ahead and wrapped the 2 wraps around, and then you take the O-ring and put it back on and put it back in here, and you should have a really good airtight seal. The way to test that is to firmly put your finger in the front end right here and get a push. You can see how it really, when you pull it, it wants to go back on. Here, let me take it all the way off and watch this. Traps that air. Get it tighter. If you really get your finger sealing off that front end, that's what you want to get. You know you've got a really good air seal, and it still slips well inside the piston, because you want that too. Otherwise, if there's too much friction, it can slam slower. But I think 2 wraps should do it, and then maybe adding a little more lithium grease to the inside of the cylinder, and you should be ready to go with that part of the system. The only other part to upgrade is the double strength catch ring spring and the upgrade power spring, and again, we will leave links for those in the description below. The only thing left to do now is to get all this stuff back together and give it a try. Alright, a little overview of what I did here to reinstall this. Again, just use your reference photos that you hopefully have taken with your cell phone, or just look up online Nerf Raider internals for a reference there. And I put everything back together here in the piston system. You have to take off, I left these on during painting, but you have to take off these little retainer tracks and then drop everything in. And then there's a little piece behind the piston here that will fit underneath these guide rails, and then you screw these into place. Then I put the spring on this little wedge here, and that fits up inside as a dart stopper into the breech here. This I didn't toy with. There's a lot of springs and things in there. I just left it in the entire time we painted it. You don't have to take that one out, leave it there. Then I put this little rod in place here, and it hits just behind this and pushes against that. The spring on the trigger mechanism back in place. Then sliding everything forward, it'll slide and it'll click forward and engage that way, and then you can put in your retainer ring and the upgrade spring here, and then just very carefully working in the power spring and kind of twisting as you go until it slides into place and clicks into this retainer backing here as part of the actual blaster molding. It'll seat in place right there. Then you should be set with your full installation of the mechanics. Next, we're going to work on reinstalling the spring grip here on the stock, as I had to take that out to take this apart for painting. Alright, so all we've got to do, it's pretty simple on the stock here. There's the little teeter-totter wedge here. You'll see a space here. That's the only place the button can fit. You just put it right, and helps to just slide the post all the way out. And there's a little tooth here that fits into the notch here, and that's what holds everything in place, so you can pull it out to size. And then there's the little spring here. So we're actually going to take this out. There's a little post. We're going to put that spring on. and then fit it into place and squeeze down the spring into this little wedge area. And we're pretty much set. Pull it till it locks in place. At least any of these links are fine. Just go ahead and put that in, and then we can reinstall our clamshell. It should be all set for that. Carefully. There we go. Yep, got the tooth engaging here. And then I'm just going to go ahead and start lining things up. There we go. And screwing it all back together. Alright, so the final thing we need to do before getting everything completely back together is the barrel. Now, I had some stock barrels, some orange barrel laying around, and I'm doing this on a budget build. So for those of you out there that have extra, you can do this. I just used a standard orange barrel, and then I had some extra worker mod barrel that I used for the other end here in silver. And what happens is, when I put this in, actually I should seat this in and show you guys. Put this part in here. I left this part exposed orange because I didn't need to paint that, because you don't see that part when it's installed inside. You get this look, and this is again reminiscent of the replica where they have that red band on the blaster. That's why I painted the barrel this way. So what I did, again, you want to always work with your lighter colors first, then work down to your darker. So I painted it red, then I taped that off and taped this part off because I didn't want to put paint there, and then hit it with the black, and that's what I got, that color, that banded color there. And so I can seat this in to the plunger system there. It lays in this cradle. Then I have this one press fit nice and tight into, I did have to again whittle away some of the rim on the inside here so the barrel would slide all the way through, so that I could get exposed barrel out the front here. Now when I mount it, I'll put it right here. When I put it into, when I slide it firmly into the molding here, it's well seated in this whole system, and then I just line it up with the other barrel that's laying in this cradle, and then it perfectly aligns the two pieces, so I get one solid barrel and a good flow of the dart through there, as you can see right there. Now if you want to, you can get a 30 centimeter solid black worker mod barrel from Amazon, and we will leave the link in the description below so you can check that out, and then do the taping and painting and just slide it in as one piece. So then you know, paint the red, paint the silver, tape it off, you know, hide the silver and the red, and then hit it with black and slide it in. But if you have some pieces you can you're willing to just kind of piece together, that works too. So that is what it looks like. And then about the vent holes, what I did, I kind of did a slap job on it, but it turned out really good. I used some painter's tape and just kind of used my calipers to measure the midpoint of this barrel, and I put some tape along that line, and I did the same thing on the flip side there, and I taped that. Then I took a very small drill bit and then drilled here, and then I looked through the end of the barrel and eyeballed it to make sure my bit was straight, and let it go all the way through the other side. So it mimicked, so what you see here, it mimics on the other side. Now if you want it completely accurate, you can add some painter's tape, measure it, put some marks, and then do the same thing on the flip side, and then just drill one side and then the other side, and you get it a perfect alignment. But this is a quick and dirty way to do it, and it turned out great. So that's the process I used to drill the vent holes. I put the pilot holes, and then after that, of course, after I added those pilot holes, I went in with an 1/8 inch drill bit just to open it up a little bigger for the venting look there. So now I believe we've got it all lined up and ready to put the other side on and get it together and give it a try. Alright, so some final pieces we have to finish here. I've got this clamshell on. I just got to put the screws in, but the back end right here, first off, don't forget that piece. Now I could have painted this black, but this all gets hidden. You can if you want to. I would just opt out not, then you don't have, because this, you know, with the stock coming off and on, you're going to get paint rubbing off on this a lot, but it is hidden, so I would just leave the gray plastic there. And then I got to take these two larger screws that go in there. So when you're taking this apart and you find these two just slightly bit larger head screws amongst all your other regular Nerf size ones, well, those two go here to put that in place, and the rest of them will go into the clamshell. And finally, of course, this pump grip. This is the new one. Again, we're going to leave the link in the description below to get the print files for free on Thingiverse for this one. And we may go back and model the pump grip that resembles the replica even more, now that there's a lot of photos of these blasters prevalent online, where there's, you know, you get those little barrel holes and there's a really deep, thick bottom portion. But this was already, if you want a really quick way to get to it and you don't have a means to design one of your own, you can just upload this one on the bottom, and it serves really well as a convincing piece to make it really look very close to that Sith Trooper blaster. So we're going to go with that one for now. We may later on model one of these and another even more detailed sight, and we'll let you know on our Instagram page, so be sure and follow us on the Instagram page there, and check us out as we keep all of our extra up-to-dates and file changes and whatnot on there, so that you guys can go there and upload those. So without further ado, I'm going to go ahead and put the screws in and get all of this together. Alright, so last but not least, I'm going to go ahead and put on the stock here. That's ready to go. And we're going to take it step by step on installing this new pump grip here. What needs to happen, there's that little post, oops, it's that little post right there. That's going to go right into that metal ring there. So, and this rim fits on this little guide rail underneath. So I'm going to line all that up. Boom. There we go. And then put the other piece on top. There we go. And then I can flip this up and continue to screw those in place. I just kind of use one finger to hold in the nut on the other side as I tighten up on the other end. There we go. Alright, nice and snug. You don't have to over tighten. And this one. Snags up, and the third one. Boom. Okay, so there it is with the, you can see what I mean, how it gives it that thicker look on the front end just by adding that. But again, we may work on a upgrade design, but it looks really cool, really convincing. And then we're going to go ahead, of course, and slide on the sight. Snug fit here. There we go. And then I've got to prime this and put in the magazine. Alright. That is a strong spring. And then slide in our mag. Prime it. That's going to be awesome to pop a few darts in this and give you guys an overall look at this thing now that it is fully assembled. Alright, so we're out here in the hallway and we will be shooting downrange at our DIY Nerf Target. If you haven't seen our tutorial on how you can make your very own, just click the card here and check that out. I have 6 rounds loaded in the mag here, and we're just going to shoot it downrange and show you what it can do. Alright everybody, hope you enjoyed watching our tutorial on converting a Nerf Raider into this Star Wars Sith Trooper blaster. If you haven't subscribed to our channel already, just click the double D icon below. You'll help us create more cool content for your enjoyment and inspiration. Until next time, I'm Jonathan, and this is Damaged Darts.